There comes a moment in a parent's life that hurts more than poverty, more than failure, more than loneliness. It's the moment when your own child looks at you without respect. You fed them when you were tired. You protected them when you were afraid. You sacrificed your comfort so they could grow. And one day, they raise their voice. They ignore your words. They treat your presence like it doesn't matter. And inside you, something breaks. You feel anger rising. You feel betrayed. You feel like saying, "After everything I've done for you." But listen carefully. If your children don't respect and value you, anger is the worst weapon you can choose. Because anger doesn't teach respect. Anger only creates distance. Anger turns pain into permanent damage. This video is not about blaming children. And it's not about tolerating disrespect either. This video is about power. The quiet, unshakable power that changes behavior without shouting, without begging, without losing your dignity. In this video, I'll show you what to do instead of getting angry, what emotionally strong parents do, what wise parents understand, and why your response today will decide how your children treat you for the rest of your life. If this message already touches something inside you, like this video, subscribe to this channel, because what you're about to hear is not comfort, it's truth. Now listen closely. 1. Stop explaining your sacrifices. One of the most painful moments in a parent's life is not when they struggle, it's when they feel unseen by the very people they sacrificed everything for. So what do most parents do when respect starts fading? They start reminding, "I gave you food when I was hungry. I worked late nights so you could study. I suffered silently for you." These words come from pain, not weakness. But here is the brutal truth no one prepares parents for. The moment you start explaining your sacrifices, respect starts dying. Not because your sacrifices weren't real, not because they didn't matter, but because respect is never born from guilt. Children may feel bad for a moment. They may feel uncomfortable. They may even feel sorry, but they do not feel respect. Guilt creates emotional distance. Strength creates gravity. When you list your sacrifices, what your child unconsciously hears is not love, it's desperation. Not because you are desperate, but because the explanation itself sounds like a defense. And the moment a parent starts defending their value, they teach their child something dangerous, that my worth needs proof. Think about this carefully. Have you ever respected someone more because they kept reminding you what they did for you? Or did you slowly stop taking them seriously? Children are no different. They don't disrespect you because you didn't give enough. They disrespect you because you kept giving without limits and then asked for validation. A parent who truly knows their worth doesn't keep score out loud. They don't narrate their pain. They don't put their suffering on display hoping it will be noticed. Because the strongest people never beg to be valued. Here's what hurts the most. Many parents explain their sacrifices not to control but to be understood. They just want one thing, to be seen. But when you repeatedly explain, you accidentally reverse the power dynamic. The child becomes the judge, and you become the one asking for acknowledgement. And authority can never exist in that position. Real respect comes from presence, not performance. From calm certainty, not emotional speeches. From knowing when to stop giving explanations and start standing still. Silence, when rooted in self-worth, is terrifyingly powerful. Imagine this: a parent who no longer says, "I did everything for you." Instead, they simply say nothing, but their actions slow down. Their availability reduces. Their emotional energy becomes selective. No drama, no shouting, no reminders, just quiet withdrawal. That silence forces reflection. Words never do, because now the child doesn't feel guilt, they feel loss. And loss teaches faster than lectures ever could. The day you stop explaining your sacrifices is the day your dignity returns. And dignity is the foundation of respect. Remember this: you didn't sacrifice your life to become a storyteller of your pain. You sacrificed because it was right. And what is right never needs justification. A parent who knows their worth doesn't demand respect. They radiate it. And sooner or later, the world, including their children, adjusts. 2. Withdraw emotion, not love. This is where most parents break their own authority without realizing it. When disrespect shows up, the instinct is immediate and human. You raise your voice. You argue. You try to correct. You chase understanding. You say, "Listen to me." You say, "Why are you behaving like this?" You say, "After everything I've done, at least talk properly." And in that moment, you believe you're teaching boundaries. But what you're actually teaching is this: if you provoke me enough, I will pour all my emotional energy into you. Children are not cruel, but they are observant. They learn very quickly what moves you, what upsets you, what pulls you into reaction. And once they realize your emotions are easily accessible, respect begins to erode. Because emotional availability without boundaries feels like entitlement. Here is the truth that changes everything. You don't need to withdraw love. You need to withdraw emotional supply. There is a massive difference. Withdrawing love wounds. Withdrawing emotion educates. Love remains steady, calm, unspoken. But emotional energy arguments, explanations, reactions gets reduced. Not angrily, not dramatically, silently. Think about this. When you shout, your child may fear you for a moment. When you argue, they may resist you. When you lecture, they tune you out. But when you go quiet with dignity, something unsettling happens inside them, because silence doesn't give them anything to fight against. No fuel, no chaos, no control. And the human mind hates unanswered emotional gaps. That's why calm withdrawal is more powerful than confrontation. Picture a parent who no longer reacts instantly, who no longer explains every feeling, who listens but doesn't chase, who responds but doesn't perform emotionally. Same love, same care, different energy. Now contrast that with a parent who reacts every time, arguing late into the night, repeating the same points, emotionally exhausted. Which one commands respect? Children respect emotional stability, not emotional overflow. Here's a real-life example. A child speaks rudely. Instead of shouting, the parent pauses, looks at them calmly and says, "I don't accept being spoken to like this." And then nothing. No lecture, no follow-up speech, no emotional debate. That silence is not weakness. It is control. And control is what children subconsciously respond to. Because now the child doesn't feel attacked, they feel uncertain. And uncertainty forces reflection. When you stop chasing their attention, something flips. They begin to notice your absence, your emotional distance, your calm withdrawal. And slowly, the question forms in their mind, why doesn't this affect them anymore? That question is the seed of respect. Remember this. Explosive emotions make you predictable. Predictability makes you controllable. But calm restraint, that makes you unmovable. And unmovable people command respect without saying a word. This doesn't mean becoming cold. It means becoming grounded. You still care. You still show love through actions. But you stop bleeding emotionally in moments of disrespect, because your emotional energy is valuable. And anything valuable must be protected. Silence, when chosen not forced, is a language of strength. 1,000 lectures may enter the ears, but one moment of dignified silence enters the soul. And once your child feels that shift, the shouting stops being necessary. The arguments lose power, because now, respect isn't being demanded. It's being earned. 3. Stop overgiving immediately. This part hurts because it goes against everything parents are taught. From the day your child is born, you are conditioned to give. Give time, give energy, give comfort, give chances, give forgiveness. And when disrespect appears, the instinct is to give more explanations, more support, more patience. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Overgiving in the presence of disrespect does not create gratitude. It creates entitlement. When disrespect enters, generosity must pause. Not forever, not angrily, not as revenge, but immediately. Because when someone doesn't value your effort, continuing to give sends a dangerous message. My energy is unlimited. and your behavior has no cost. And human beings, especially children, do not respect what comes without conditions. This is where many parents feel guilty. They think, if I stop giving, I'm being cruel. They think, if I pull back, I'm abandoning my child. No, cruelty is withdrawing love. Boundaries are withdrawing access. There is a difference. Think about real life. Have you ever valued something more after it became harder to get? Time, attention, opportunity. Value is created by limits. When everything is freely available regardless of behavior, it loses meaning. The same applies to parental effort. When a child speaks disrespectfully and nothing changes, when rudeness is followed by favors, when entitlement is rewarded with more comfort, the lesson becomes clear even if it's unspoken. I can treat you however I want, and you'll still give. And once that lesson is learned, respect disappears quietly. Here's what stopping overgiving actually looks like. You don't rush to fix everything. You don't immediately rescue. You don't stretch yourself thin to keep peace. You slow down. Not coldly, not dramatically, naturally. A child wants something, but the tone is disrespectful. You don't argue. You don't explain. You simply don't provide. No speech. No anger. Just absence. That absence teaches more than words ever could. Because now, the child experiences something new. Effort has conditions. Access has requirements. Energy is earned. And the message becomes crystal clear. Access to me requires respect. That sentence never needs to be spoken out loud. It is felt. Parents often fear this moment because they're afraid of being unloved. But here is the truth no one says aloud. Children don't lose love when boundaries appear. They lose control. And that loss feels uncomfortable at first. But discomfort is where growth begins. Stopping overgiving is not punishment. Punishment is emotional. This is education. You are teaching your child how the real world works. Because the world does not reward disrespect with generosity. The world closes doors quietly. You are not being harsh. You are being honest. And here's the hardest part to accept. If your child only respects you when you give, they don't respect you, they respect the benefits. Real respect emerges when your presence alone has value. When you stop overgiving, something powerful happens. Your energy becomes noticeable. Your effort becomes visible. Your absence becomes meaningful. Suddenly, they feel the shift. Not because you shouted, not because you threatened, but because something changed. And that change forces awareness. Remember this. Love does not mean unlimited access. Care does not mean self-erasure. Parenthood does not mean emotional bankruptcy. Your effort is valuable, and anything valuable must have boundaries. The day you stop overgiving in the face of disrespect is the day you reclaim your power, not by force, not by fear, but by self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation upon which all real respect is built. 4. Rebuild your own life. This is the truth most parents are never ready to hear. Not because it's false, but because it hurts. Children slowly stop respecting parents who have no life beyond them. Not because those parents are bad, not because they didn't sacrifice enough, but because when your entire existence revolves around your children, something dangerous happens beneath the surface. You disappear. And when a person disappears into someone else's life, they also lose authority in it. Think about this carefully. When a child grows up seeing that your happiness depends entirely on them, that your moods rise and fall with their behavior, that your purpose, conversations, and days have no center outside of them, they don't feel loved. They feel burdened. And burden quietly turns into disrespect. This is not cruelty. This is psychology. Children instinctively respect people who stand on their own feet, people who have direction, people who have identity, people who are not emotionally dependent. When your entire world shrinks down to your child, the child becomes the center and you become the satellite. And satellites don't command respect. They orbit. Many parents confuse devotion with self-erasure. They give up hobbies. They abandon friendships. They stop dreaming. They stop growing. Years later, they wake up and realize My whole life became about my child, and now I'm invisible. And invisibility never attracts respect. Here's the painful irony. The more you sacrifice your individuality, the less seriously your child takes you. Not consciously, subconsciously. Because strength is felt, not explained. Rebuilding your own life does not mean loving your child less. It means loving yourself enough to exist fully. It means having a routine that doesn't collapse when your child is distant. It means interests that don't require their approval. It means goals that don't depend on their attention. When a child sees that you wake up with purpose, that you have your own schedule, that your life continues whether they praise you or ignore you, something shifts. They sense stability. They sense independence. They sense strength. And strength demands respect without asking for it. Look at parents who are quietly respected. They don't beg for time. They don't cling for validation. They don't revolve endlessly. They are rooted. They read. They walk. They work. They build. They laugh without permission. And because they don't chase relevance, they become relevant. A fulfilled parent does not lecture about respect. They embody it. Their calm comes from having a life. Their authority comes from not needing approval. Their presence feels solid because it's not desperate. This is where many parents resist. They say, "But my child is my life." Yes, but your child should be part of your life, not the replacement for it. When you rebuild your own life, you send a powerful message without words. I love you, but I'm whole on my own. That message does not push children away. It anchors them, because deep down, children want to respect their parents. They want to look up to someone who is standing, not bending. The moment you stop living only for your child and start living with yourself again, your posture changes, your energy shifts, your voice slows down, and respect begins to return. Not because you demanded it, but because you became someone worth respecting again, in your own eyes first. Remember this: a parent with no life becomes dependent. A parent with a full life becomes magnetic. And magnetism never begs. It simply attracts. 5. Speak less but mean more. One of the greatest illusions parents live under is this: if I explain it well enough, they'll finally understand. So they talk, and talk, and talk. They give long lectures filled with emotion, logic, memory, pain, and frustration. They repeat themselves in different words. They raise their voice not because they want to, but because they feel unheard. But here is the hard truth: the more you talk, the less power your words carry. When respect is fading, volume does not restore it. Length does not strengthen it. Emotion does not save it. In fact, excessive talking does the opposite: it dilutes authority. Children stop listening not because they don't understand, but because they already know there will be no consequence, only more words. Long speeches feel powerful to the speaker, but to the listener, they feel like noise. And noise is easy to ignore. Think about the people you truly respect in life. Do they explain themselves endlessly? Do they plead? Do they raise their voice? Or do they speak once and mean it? Authority has always been quiet. When you speak calmly and briefly, something changes. Your words slow the moment down. They land heavier. They feel final, a single sentence, delivered without anger, without shaking, without emotion. That sentence enters the room differently. Example: I don't accept being spoken to this way. That's it. No explanation, no justification, no emotional spill. Then you stop talking. That silence is not empty. It is loaded, because now the responsibility shifts. The child is left alone with their behavior. No argument to push against, no lecture to tune out, no emotional storm to distract them. Just a mirror. And mirrors are uncomfortable. Most parents are afraid of silence. They think silence means weakness. They think silence means losing control. But silence, when chosen consciously, is the highest form of control. Shouting is reactive. Silence is intentional. One comes from losing balance. The other comes from having it. When you stop filling the space with words, your presence fills it instead. Your posture, your stillness, your calm, And children feel that shift instantly. Here's what happens next. The child tests you. They wait for the follow-up lecture. They expect more words, but nothing comes. And that absence unsettles them, because the mind hates unresolved moments. That discomfort teaches more than explanation ever could. Silence forces accountability. Lectures invite resistance. When you speak less, your words become rare. And rarity creates value. A parent who talks all the time becomes background noise. A parent who speaks sparingly becomes authority. This does not mean becoming cold or distant. It means becoming precise. You still communicate, but you choose moments carefully. You don't argue. You state. You don't convince. You declare. You don't chase understanding. You set a boundary and let reality teach the rest. And the most powerful part? Your calm tells your child something without words. I am not shaken by your behavior. And when children realize they cannot control your emotions with their tone, respect begins to return. Not loudly, not instantly, but deeply. Remember this: 1,000 shouted words disappear. One calm sentence stays. And the parent who learns to speak less but mean more never needs to raise their voice again. 6. Accept that you cannot control them. This is the hardest truth a parent will ever face. Harder than sacrifice. Harder than loneliness. Harder than disrespect. You cannot control your children. Not their thoughts. Not their choices. Not the way they feel about you. And the more you try, the more power you lose. Parents don't try to control because they are cruel. They try to control because they are afraid. Afraid of mistakes. Afraid of failure. Afraid of losing connection. Afraid of becoming irrelevant. So they correct every word, question every decision, monitor every move, interfere for their own good. But what children experience is not care. They experience pressure, and pressure suffocates respect. Here's the truth most parents never want to admit. The moment you treat your child like a possession, they begin to resist you like a captor. Children are not extensions of your unfinished dreams. They are not proof of your success. They are not objects to be shaped into safety. They are individuals, with their own wounds you didn't cause, their own confusion you can't solve, their own ego you can't dismantle. And when you try to control what was never yours to own, you weaken your authority without realizing it. Control creates rebellion. Control creates secrecy. Control creates distance. And distance is where disrespect grows. Think about this carefully. Have you ever truly respected someone who tried to control you? Or did you comply outwardly and resent them inwardly? Children do the same. They may obey for a while. They may stay silent. But inside, something hardens. And one day, it shows up as coldness, as defiance, as disrespect. This is where everything changes. The moment you stop trying to control them, you regain your power. Because authority is not about domination. It's about grounded presence. Control says, I don't trust you. Self-respect says, I trust myself. And children feel that difference immediately. A parent who doesn't chase obedience, who doesn't force agreement, who doesn't panic over every choice, feels solid, unshakable. And solidity creates respect. Letting go does not mean you stop guiding. It means you stop gripping. You still state boundaries. You still express expectations. But you release the outcome. You stop hovering. You stop micromanaging. You stop emotionally attaching your identity to their behavior. And something strange happens. When control leaves, tension dissolves. When tension dissolves, communication softens. When communication softens, respect finds room to return. Here's the painful irony. The tighter you hold, the faster they pull away. The calmer you stand, the closer they come. Children don't need a controller. They need a stable reference point. Someone who is firm but not frantic, present but not possessive, loving but not afraid. Accepting that you cannot control them is not surrender. It is maturity. It is the moment you say, I have done my part. Now I trust life to do the rest. And trust, real trust, is power. Because when your child realizes you are no longer trying to dominate their choices, they stop fighting you. And when the fight ends, respect has a chance to breathe again. Remember this: control weakens authority because it exposes fear. Self-respect strengthens authority because it reveals confidence. And confident parents, parents who are not desperate to control, are the ones children quietly learn to respect again. Not immediately, not loudly, but deeply. 7. Let consequences speak. This is where real authority finally appears. Not through threats, not through anger, not through emotional speeches, but through consequences. Most parents talk too much and act too little. They warn, they repeat, they promise consequences but never deliver them. And children learn something dangerous. Words don't mean anything here. So the disrespect continues. Here's the truth most parents avoid: consequences don't need to be loud to be effective. They need to be consistent. No threats, no countdowns, no emotional drama, just cause and effect. When disrespect continues, access reduces. Not as revenge, not as punishment, but as reality. Think about how life works. When you miss deadlines, opportunities shrink. When you speak badly, doors quietly close. When you break trust, access disappears. Life doesn't shout at you, it adjusts. And that adjustment teaches more than any lecture ever could. Parents who understand this stop explaining consequences. They don't say, "If you do this again, I'll..." If you don't listen, then they simply change their behavior. A child speaks disrespectfully. The conversation ends. A child demands without respect. The support pauses. A child ignores boundaries. Privileges reduce. Calmly, silently, naturally. No anger in the voice. No punishment in the tone. Just distance where there used to be access. That quiet shift hits harder than shouting ever could. Because now, the child doesn't feel attacked. They feel the absence of something they took for granted. And absence forces awareness. Parents often fear this step. They think, if I reduce access, they'll hate me. But hatred comes from humiliation and control. Respect comes from clarity and consistency. Consequences are not meant to hurt. They are meant to teach. And teaching without emotion is the most powerful kind. Imagine this moment. Your child is rude. You say nothing. You simply stop engaging. No lecture, no explanation. Later, they realize something is different. Less conversation, less help, less availability. And suddenly, the question appears in their mind. Why does this feel different? That question is where learning begins. Words invite debate. Consequences invite reflection. When you argue, the focus stays on you. When consequences arrive, the focus shifts to them. That's the difference. Letting consequences speak requires discipline from the parent, not the child. It requires you to stay calm when every instinct wants to react, to stay consistent when guilt whispers, to stay silent when emotions beg for release. But once you hold that line, something powerful happens. Your child begins to associate behavior with outcome, not because you forced it, but because reality made it unavoidable. And reality is the best teacher there is. Here's the final truth. If a child only behaves when threatened, they haven't learned respect, they've learned fear. But if a child changes because access disappeared quietly, they've learned responsibility. And responsibility is the foundation of respect. Remember this: you don't need to raise your voice when consequences are clear. You don't need to argue when reality speaks. You don't need to explain when patterns are consistent. Life teaches better than lectures ever will. Your job is not to shout lessons. It is to allow them to be experienced. And once consequences speak for you, you finally get to rest. 8. Become emotionally unshakable. There is a moment in every parent's journey when something inside finally settles. A moment when you realize their words no longer control your nervous system. Their tone no longer decides your mood. Their disrespect no longer steals your peace. And when that happens, everything changes. Children are extremely sensitive to emotional reactions. They may not understand your sacrifices. They may not recognize your pain, but they can always feel when they still have power over you. As long as disrespect shakes you, as long as it triggers anger, tears, lectures, or emotional collapse, they unconsciously sense instability, not weakness, instability. And instability erodes respect faster than anything else. Becoming emotionally unshakable does not mean becoming cold. It means becoming anchored. You still feel, you still care, but your reactions no longer erupt. Your emotions stop spilling outward and start settling inward. And that inner stability is felt immediately. Imagine two parents. One reacts instantly, voice raised, face tense, emotions flooding the room. The other pauses, breath steady, eyes calm, voice low. Same situation, completely different energy. Which one feels powerful? Children sense emotional mastery the way animals sense fear. They don't analyze it. They feel it. When your child realizes that disrespect no longer provokes you, that they cannot control your mood, that their words no longer tilt your balance, something unfamiliar enters their world. Loss. Not the loss of love, but the loss of influence. And influence is what fuels disrespect. This is why emotional unshakability works where discipline fails. Because now, the child has nothing to fight against. No emotional storm to trigger. No reaction to dominate. Just calm presence. And calm presence is unsettling to someone who is used to control. Parents often fear this state. They think, if I stop reacting, they'll think I don't care. But the opposite happens. Children don't mistake calm for indifference. They mistake chaos for weakness. Your steadiness communicates something words never could. I am not fragile. I am not desperate. I am not controlled by you. And that message is powerful. Here's how emotional unshakability looks in real life. A disrespectful comment is made. You pause. You breathe. You respond, if at all, with a single calm sentence. Or sometimes, you don't respond at all, and then you continue with your life. No sulking, no punishment delivered emotionally, no silent anger, just neutrality. That neutrality teaches something profound. Disrespect does not earn attention, and attention is what fuels behavior. Over time, children notice the shift. They feel the emotional distance. They sense the change in gravity. They recognize that something they once had control has faded. And slowly, without confrontation, respect returns. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, because now they are responding to who you have become, not what you demand. This is the highest form of authority. Not enforced, not explained, embodied. Remember this: anyone can shout, anyone can punish, anyone can lecture, but very few can remain calm when provoked. And calm is the rarest and most respected state of all. When you become emotionally unshakable, you stop chasing respect. You stop negotiating dignity. You simply exist in it, and that existence changes the dynamic forever. Because respect is not taught through fear. It is absorbed through presence. And presence, true presence, cannot be shaken. As we conclude, if you are a parent watching this and feeling pain, you are not weak. You are not failing. You are just learning a higher level of wisdom. Respect is not forced. It is earned through boundaries and self-worth. If this video helped you even a little, like it, subscribe, and comment. I choose dignity over anger, because strong parents don't shout, they stand firm.